Here.
Mr. Stein?
Here.
Mr. Homburg?
Here.
Mr. DePula?
Here.
Mr. Holmquist?
Here.
Alder Goforth is excused.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 28, 2022?
I'll move.
Anybody? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Susan. Do we have any corrections, changes, additions to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes carry. Now we'd like to move to appearances. I understand that we have 3 people here this evening, and we'll check online after that. I have Jerry Thompson first. Jerry, do you want to speak?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, then if you could come up to the podium and give us your name and address to start. And everyone who's here for appearances, just know that during the appearance section, it's all about us listening. We don't respond to any questions. We just listen, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
It's Jerry Thompson, 306 Owen Road.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm opposed to the apartment buildings being built on the bottom of Owen Road.
Uh-huh.
First of all, we have plenty of apartment buildings, and that is not a benefit to Monona there. We have 400 apartments already. We don't need another 200. The traffic is not going to be the same as what we had with the bowling alley. The traffic from the bowling alley basically came off Monona Drive. They're going to be flying up Owen Road like they do in the morning from the east side to avoid the traffic on East Broadway. Plus the fact, we have plenty of apartments. I'm not sure why we need a bunch more, especially where we already have 400 in that area. I mean, we have plenty of new apartments, and you guys are well aware we're going to have more.
Mhm.
We're going to have them on where Whitewater, Chief's Auto Body is, and you know where BMO Bank. Question how many are going to be there, but you know there are going to be apartments there. There is an addition down by East Broadway. That is a compliment to Monona, those apartments there. Plus, it isn't a hazard for traffic. They're right there on the belt line. I mean, we had Garden Circle, and 50, 60 years ago, Chris, it was fine. They've been gone about 15 years. The last 20, 30, 40 years, it was not good. We had the traffic from Simpson Street to Garden Circle, and anyone who lives there knows the trouble we had. And with the trouble they have down at the New Grove Apartments, you know they've got the shootings, they've got the drugs, and we're going to have that going back and forth there. We don't need that in Monona. We have a limited police department, and they have certain people that they seem to let break the law to begin with, this new police department. So we don't need this. Thank you.
We have Felicia Wagner. Again, introduce yourself and give us your address, please. Thank you.
My name is Felicia Wagner. I'm at 302 Owen Road. I am also speaking about that exact same apartment building. Against it, there are several things that I have a list of notes for. The first one, you're not answering questions, but if at some point someone afterwards maybe could get back to me on this, that would be great. How are taxes decided? Right now, the building is proposed to be 193 new apartments, and my understanding is that when you have apartment complexes come in versus single-family houses, the family houses are the ones who see the increase in taxes. So I have a whole laundry list of things I want to talk about, but my question is, how are taxes collected? Will that owner of that building be paying 193 homes worth of property taxes? If not, again, very adamantly against this. Crime that Jerry brought up is a big deal. Since I moved to our home, we moved there in 2017, we've had our curb vandalized. I'm a corner lot. I'm on the corner of Owen and Anthony Place. We've had our curb vandalized. There's been drug needles on the curbs. The apartment building across from me on Owen, on the Anthony Place side, they had a meth lab in an upper apartment, and it took a long time to get that person evicted. There have been car break-ins. My neighbor Amanda, who lives in that building, had her car stolen, and her car was broken in multiple times, and other car break-ins around our block. There's other drug houses that have been busted in our neighborhood. Again, more apartment buildings. There was a drunk driver. There used to be a sign between my house and Jerry's house, a no parking sign. A drunk driver hit it. We caught it on our traffic cam. but unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that, even with it being on camera. There was a car chase last month. Again, had it not been for our traffic cam, the police would have never found them. Guess where they went? They went into the low-income housing apartments the other side of the street from us. We have so many apartments around us, and there's a lot of crime just on that little corner. I'm very surprised, and had we known it was going to be so terrible, would we have bought in Monona? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe definitely not in the crime zone, which we didn't realize was there. We were told Monona had very little crime, but it turns out that's not true. Also, the Quick Trip, which off of Broadway, has a bunch of apartments. There was a shooting there. There's been a shooting by the Walgreens not far from our house, which it's my understanding there's more apartments going in across the new Quick Trip. So like Jerry said, we don't need shootings in our neighborhoods. I have small children. So that's just some of the crime. This past weekend, there was, again, another manhunt, and they were in the apartments trying to locate the people. So they're bouncing between all the apartment buildings and all the little walkways between them. Just mathematically, I looked up the population for Monona. As of 2019, it was 8,122 people, 193 apartments. Assuming only one person lives there, increases our population by 2.4% on that corner. 2.4%. Now, assuming some of those are multi-people, more than one person living there, or families, if there were 3 people living in each apartment, that's 7.1%, not to mention the other apartments buildings going up all around in Monona. What is our goal for our population, and how are we going to address the needs that come with it? Police being one of those needs. Secondly, I work in the schools. I can tell you that our classrooms are already mostly at capacity. Our school is understaffed. Just now did we get a 3rd person in the cafeteria, and there are other positions that have yet to be filled, can't find substitutes for. Are we going to build another school to address the increase in population? And if so, where? Monona is landlocked. I think there's a lot of things that have not been thought about. From someone who's been attending online the meetings or listening to them afterwards, it feels like it's already been decided that this is going to be built, whether or not it's good for Monona. And I'm seeing there's supposed to be zoning rules. I have another neighbor here. I'll let him talk about his stuff, but his house was zoned incorrectly as multifamily. There's supposed to be buffers between single-family homes and all of the big buildings. And we're taking away the buffers is what it feels like, which I don't really appreciate. That's going to decrease my property value because of all of the things that come with it. What benefit to the community is there really going to be? To the community, not just to the people in that building. I know they talked about they're going to have a gym, they're going to have a dog park, they're going to have a green space. That's great for the people who live there, but we're not going to be allowed access to that. And even still, there's a lot of other problems that it brings. Traffic being a big one on that corner, taking out the post office, as supposedly that's going to be incorporated into the lower floor of this new building. The federal government has a hard time keeping the post offices open as it is. I don't want to lose my post office. That's a really big, important part of our city. And me personally, being someone who lives in Monona, I don't want to have to drive to Madison to a whole nother city when I have postal needs. I use the post office pretty regularly. I have an in-home business. They know me by name. I'm there almost all the time. Losing the post office is a really big deal. If they take it out, what is the guarantee that they're going to bring it back, knowing that the federal government is struggling for money? That's a big deal. And that looks like most of my notes. The big question is, what is the benefit to the community, the whole community? Because I see a lot of the problems, and we already have it with everything that's already there. Thank you.
Thank you. John Hetzler. Nice to finally see you in person.
I know, I was just going to say the same. Thank you. My name is John Etzler. I live at 5805 Anthony Place in Monona. And I'm here speaking in opposition to the request for the approval of the GDP of the former Village Lane site on Owen Road. There's an old saying that often attributed to Mark Twain that goes, "Figures lie, but liars figure." The point of the saying is that you can start with accurate data, but the data can be manipulated by someone knowledgeable and unscrupulous. The last time this commission met to discuss the proposed project, the commission requested the developer complete a traffic analysis to assess the impact of the proposed development. In your packet in this evening's meeting, there's a letter that the developer put together that summarizes the results of that study. The letter states, at AM peak hour, only 10 additional cars are projected to travel west down Owen Road with the complete build-out of the development. Only 10 additional cars traveling down Owen Road from a development that is proposing to construct 191 apartment units and commercial space for 309 vehicles. That is amazing. How can that be accomplished? Well, let's look at the figures. Table 5 of the study projects the apartments alone will generate 75 trips in the morning and 75 trips in the evening during peak hours. Based on the study, 880 additional vehicle trips each day are directly related to the proposed residential housing. Of these new trips, 45% of the traffic will travel north on Monona Drive, 35% will travel south, and the remaining 20% will travel west on Owen Road. That means at least 15 additional vehicles in the morning between 7:15 and 8:15, an additional 15 in the evening between 4:30 and 5:30. Or at least 176 additional vehicles per day will be traveling west on Owen Road through Monona's residential neighborhoods. How can the developer say only 10 additional cars are projected to travel west down Owen Road? Simple. By lowering the square foot of commercial space available at the site, the number of projected vehicle trips drops. The model uses a category for this called strip retail space to determine the impacts of proposed commercial space on traffic. The model places a higher value on retail trips than it does on residential trips because it assumes people are traveling to and from a strip mall multiple times a day for daily shopping needs. Consequently, when you reduce the size of the commercial space available at the site, you can reduce the projected number of vehicular trips traveled to the site. Based on the model's report, the proposed project will reduce retail space by approximately 3,500 square feet. Excluding the post office, the model estimates that current retail space generates 890 trips per day. Assuming a normal 8-hour day of those businesses that exist there, that's over 111 vehicles traveling to and from those businesses each hour. Unfortunately, the former Village Lane site does not contain a strip retail plaza. Besides the post office, it is primarily office space that houses several small businesses, including a daycare center, tutoring facility, and therapy center. I cannot imagine these businesses generate that high traffic volume credited in the modeling. The data in the report does not lie, but it is incomplete. Without being able to determine how much of the current volume of traffic is associated with the existing businesses, besides the post office, there's no base to determine if the model's estimated decrease in traffic volume is due to the lower level of retail space, if that's even valid. As I mentioned when I first started presenting, you can start with accurate data, but that data can't be manipulated to tell a story. My question for you tonight is, whose story are you going to believe? Are you going to trust the developer in estimating that daily traffic volume to the site, which is associated with retail, will actually decrease by 510 vehicles per day due to the proposed reduction in retail space? Are you going to trust the data and ask for more facts? I am here tonight because I am concerned about the impacts of the proposed development placed on the city's resources and surrounding neighborhood. The current vacancy of the former Village Lanes bowling alley is a gift to this city. However, the developer continues to stress the need for high-density rental housing With the supply of affordable owner-occupied homes in Monona continuing to dwindle. In addition, the deletion of over 15,000 square feet of retail space should be enough to give you pause and think how the loss of affordable small business space will impact Monona's business environment. The city of Monona has much to offer. Unfortunately, as proposed, this redevelopment does not contribute to the city's long-term viability, and a request before you this evening should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody here this evening online, on Zoom, who wishes to appear before I close the appearance section? Okay. Seeing none, I don't see any hands up. I'm going to go ahead and close the appearance section. And move on to number 5, unfinished business. 5A, public hearing on the request by Dave Jones, Inc. for approval of the zoning permit for site modifications to expand their corporate campus at 2101 Industrial Drive, case number 2-002-2022. Dave Jones is here representing.
Yep,
On
Blake
behalf
Hager,
of Dave
Screen
Jones?
Structures, designer, here representing Dave Jones and Screen
Yep,
Structures.
hang on, we're having a little difficulty with the volume.
Okay.
I have a bid
Yes.
I put into that project, so I'm going to abstain from any action.
Thank you, Chris. Hang on. Try talking now.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you very much.
You got Blake Hager, Screen Structures, designer for the project. We also have Dylan Douglas, JT Engineering, civil engineer on the project. Here to answer any questions you guys might have.
Would you, given the volume in your packet and what we're looking at tonight, if you could walk through, recognizing that not everybody has, certainly the commission has looked at the packet, but knowing that we have public here that's interested as well, if you could just walk through the proposal a little bit, that would be great for us.
Sure. Yep, we're looking to expand Dave Jones campus to an existing building at 2101 Industrial Drive.
Uh-huh.
The building right now is basically a warehouse. We're looking to expand in there to create a training center for young employees, to get people excited for the trades, also a training area for current employees, and a few office spaces. Part of the proposal is to update the exterior, new paint colors to brand with Dave Jones, some signage, new parking lots with some outdoor spaces, and basically to make it a nice cohesive part of the Dave Jones campus, we're calling it now.
Okay.
And Dylan, I don't know if you have anything else for the civil portion of it.
Okay.
Turning the existing parking lot, which has about 10 stalls, into a almost 60 stall parking lot, adding a patio area off the building, an additional storage shed off the building as well, and outdoor training center.
Great. Terrific. Is there anything else you want to say in the proposal before I close the public hearing section?
No, just that Dave Jones is really excited to get the younger people involved in the trades, and this is a great opportunity to do that and to really help the community out. And plus make the existing building a little bit more attractive, and adding some lights for security and things like that. So just really updating that corner, making it a nice building.
Okay. Great, thank you. And if I remember correctly from the pre-hearing, you guys indicated that you're the second largest employer in Monona, is that right?
They are, yep. Yep, I believe they have about 450 to 500 employees and continually growing.
Great. Okay, thank you. With that, I'll close the public hearing. And we'll move to 5B, consideration of action on the request by Dave Jones, Inc. for approval of a zoning permit for site modifications to expand their corporate campus at 2101 Industrial Drive. Case number 2-002-2022. Doug?
Thank you. So this is a zoning permit request for both building improvements and a new use at 2101 Industrial Drive. Dave Jones looking to expand the campus for HR staff, training space and meeting rooms. The property is located within the Community Design District, the CDD, and the Plan Commission reviews zoning permit requests in this district. A pre-hearing conference was held on January 10th of 2022. Feedback was favorable. Landscaping was discussed, as was the water quality management on the site as well. The site is marked or designated as for industrial in both current and future land use maps. Looking at the definition as listed in the staff report, it does appear appropriate, an appropriate use moving forward. The plans look to use the two existing curb cuts that are on the site, both on industrial and on Kilgist. The work in the right-of-way would need city review and approval. Given where the property line falls, there would be some part there. The building is just under 12,000 square feet, and the applicant proposes a total of 58 parking stalls with 3 ADA stalls. The materials stated that they expect up to 60 occupants daily, but they said at the January pre-hearing that no work vehicles would be parked here, so the parking does appear to be appropriate. In terms of the building improvements, the removal of the loading dock, the existing loading dock, would take place. An entry canopy would be added to the southern face. The skills trench, as mentioned, would be installed, as well as a patio, a 16-foot by 30-foot shed, as well as the dumpster and the accompanying enclosure. Facade improvements would be in line with the corporate branding, and there is a solar array that is listed as a possible future improvement on the roof. I did want to point out the condensers that are shown on the site plans. They would need to be screened in line with city ordinance, either with landscaping or fencing. And again, the fencing that is shown on the civil plans, as well as the 16 by 30 storage shed, details were not included for those, so that's a recommended condition that the applicant work with staff to address those. The stormwater plans were reviewed by Darren Pope of Vierbecker. His review letter is included in the packet. He's joined the meeting tonight because I think there's some updates on possible developments on some of the stormwater that I'll pass it over to him to sort of explain and answer any questions that may arise. The applicant proposes a total of 14 new lights, 1-4. There was no light trespass shown on the photometric plan. The landscaping at 15 points per parking stall proposed would need 870 points. 2,666 points are actually proposed, with extensive canopy trees and plantings around the entire building perimeter. Signage is shown in a couple of the renderings, and that would need to return to Plan Commission, most likely for a separate sign permit. With all that, staff recommends approval with the conditions as outlined in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Corinne, would you like to start us off today?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Darren, would you like to give us an update on stormwater first?
Hi, yeah, this is Darren with Vierbecker.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
And sure, no problem. It's easy to do it from home. I guess in terms of stormwater, I did receive a phone call earlier today from Dylan, and he actually might be the one to be more appropriate to talk about changes that he had mentioned to me. I'll just give a little bit of background in that this site is within the industrial park, which has a plan, an existing regional stormwater management basin. that was designed to accommodate all the development in the industrial park and to provide runoff rate control and sediment reduction for the properties within the business park. They, at the beginning of the design process, Dillon was not able to confirm if the existing storm sewers could get the water from their site to that regional basin. So they took a more conservative approach and decided to try to rework the existing pond that was on site to provide treatment for sediment reduction and then also for rate control. And I did make some comments on the proposed dimensions and grading of that pond. There are guidance from Dane County and also from the DNR regarding how wet ponds should be graded. They're not necessarily ordinance requirements, but they are recommended approaches to how you do perform grading for those ponds. And because of the space that was, the original pond that's on the site now wasn't designed to those standards. So, they're probably going to have some difficulty trying to put in, a less steep slope on the ponds and include a safety shelf in the pond. And for those reasons, Dillon was thinking of maybe changing his approach to the stormwater management. And so I guess maybe at this point it would be appropriate then maybe for Dillon to share with the commission, what you spoke to me earlier today about what your thoughts were for which direction you might, I guess the couple options that you talked about.
Yeah, so our first option is we're going to investigate the storm sewer system a little bit further to see if we can verify if it goes to the regional pond. If it does go to the regional pond, we won't have to worry about the rate control or stormwater quality. So that would be the preferred alternative if we get to that point. Otherwise, we will investigate, or we're going to look into some other alternatives for stormwater quality rather than a wet pond. So there might be some minor changes to the site with those revisions.
Okay. Darren, did you have anything else you wanted to add now that before I open it up to the commission?
I guess the only other comment that I thought might be significant was the locations where they had the ADA parking stalls based on where the two entrances are on the plans, and I wasn't sure, it wasn't designated which was going to be their accessible entrance. But the locations where they're putting the ADA stalls seemed remote, were not as close as they could get to those entrances. So I recommended that they take a look at that, see which is their accessible entrance, and put those parking spots closer or more in direct line with that accessible entrance. And I think that and the stormwater comments were the only major things that I would point out at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Corrine?
Yeah, good evening. This is different. So I really like what you proposed here. I like the idea of the campus. I guess just going off of the two comments that were just brought up. The first, when I was looking at the parking, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but it seemed like maybe the interest was to have those accessible parking spots by that walkway to the other building. Is that the intention of that?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, maybe consideration could be to take the one that's on the east side and move that closer to the door, but then leave the other two by the walkway so that they can use that to get across. My other question was about the 60, you said there'd be about 60 daily occupants, but there's only 58. Are the people that are coming to the building coming in at different times?
Yeah, they're coming at different times. So they have a class possibly of about 20 to 25, different times of the day. Some of the employees from the building will be coming over, so it's really kind of a mix. There typically won't be 60 people in the building at any one time, so that parking lot should not be totally full.
Okay.
And there's also parking in the street and another place on campus that they can share for employees.
Okay. All right. I don't have too many comments on it. I think this looks great, and I think, Doug highlighted a couple of things that he can continue to work with you on, and it sounds like maybe the stormwater is something that we'd want to add to this list as well, just to work through that. But I don't have any concerns. I think this looks great.
Thank you. Patrick?
I don't really have much else to add that Corian hasn't mentioned. So I think it looks great. It's great for Monona. I like the attention to the lighting plan, and the color temperatures are a bit warmer, which is nice. So it doesn't look so. And a lot of attention seems to have been given towards not having that light spill off the property either. So I like the plan.
Brian?
Sure. I think the plan's great. When you were here last time, I think we covered it, and a lot of the pieces were taken care of. I see the attention that was brought to landscaping, which is great to see. That was some of the additional details that we had previously. One of the questions I have for other commission members is regarding the bicycle parking. I know it's listed in our staff report as one of the things that we've encouraged for developments and redevelopments, and I'm curious of people's thoughts in this particular type of setting, in an industrial park, that doesn't seem like it is a high biking area, and curious, just because it's in the staff report, so if others have comments on that piece. I know the possibility of solar on top is wonderful, and I know Chair Moore brought that up previously, of this is a prime location of not a ton of canopy trees covering it up, so I would encourage that as a future possibility. I see the aspect of the fence. As it relates to the ADA parking spaces, and the use of this space in building in addition with the adjacent building, I think what's proposed here is splitting the difference of being able to have access to this building fairly. I know we would want those spaces to be as close as possible, but I think you're splitting the difference here of being able to be on the same side as the most accessible entryway to this building, but also close to the building across the way. So I think it's a good accommodation of the two pieces. And those were all the comments I had.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, I think it was received very well the last time that we met, and I don't think much has changed. I think you're doing a lot to improve this campus, and I think with all the landscaping, it's going to be great. The only comments I would have, and I think as far as the stormwater is concerned, I think that can be worked out with city staff to find out the best way to handle stormwater needs. As far as biking goes, I think it is a nice gesture to employees that might have interest in, mostly employees I'm thinking are probably going to use that, but maybe there's another solution for that, internally storing bikes and things. But I wouldn't say I would demand it. I think I would agree that it's not a high bike area, but it could be a good addition. As far as the screening of the condensers, I think the landscape plan does address that. It's these ones here.
Yeah. We've talked quite at length with the landscaper about covering those. We're also going to build some retaining walls to get them sitting a little bit lower. So yeah, a lot of attention can be brought to those condensers.
Yeah, it looks like it. So that's great. One thing I would look at is your tree placements. I think there's some conflicts with lights. Those would come to light, no pun intended, upon installation, I'm sure, but something you might want to address sooner than when it goes into the field. Other than that, I think it's a great project.
Great, thank you. Susan?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add either. I think it looks great. I think it's going to be a huge improvement on that corner. And, yeah, the landscaping I thought was impressive. I like that you're doing that. Some of those trees on the, I guess it's the east side, there are a couple that might be dead. I don't know. At this time of year, it's hard to tell, but, I mean, some of them look a little ragged, but you'll pay attention to that, I assume, because I know you plan to leave some of them, so. And, yeah, as long as the concerns raised in the letter from Verbecker are addressed, the stormwater being the main one, and if you think through the ADA parking and you feel like that is the best place for the reasons you've cited, that makes sense to me. I agree with what's already been said about the bikes. It doesn't look to me like it'd be an area where you'd need many bikes. Might even be possible to have a bike rack on your other, but near your other building, wherever it would fit. It might fit on this building too. I don't see that as a big issue. That's just something to maybe think about. Otherwise, I think it looks great. I appreciate all the work.
Thank you.
Chair Moore? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I was just going to comment on the bikes as well. I don't think, I think we need to require it as part of this, but, we're thinking about them coming from Monona to the facility, but there is the proximity to the bike path that is the other direction.
Yeah.
too.
Right.
So I think if you can find a place to put something, that would be good.
Sure.
And I would also assume just on the bike front, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I mean, is it possible that some employees might ride their bike to work knowing that they would then have to get into a company truck?
Possibly, and I'll check to see if they have other accommodations as part of the campus. In their main building, they may have bike racks. I'm just not 100% sure, but I'll definitely look into it and see if we can get some sort of a accommodation somewhere on the campus.
Right, because I could see if there's, if they're coming and they have to get into a company truck anyway, that if somebody did live nearby or because of the bike path, or if somebody was just coming for a class for a part of the day and then, again, going into a company truck or going to a class where the bikes, and they're having some flexibility there. Again, not required, but something I think certainly look at, as well as the stormwater. Any other comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval with the conditions as stated in the staff report 1 through 8 and add a condition that the stormwater approval can be managed through working with the staff.
Okay.
However you say that.
Okay.
I'll second it.
I have a second? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Let me just make one more comment since my name was once again used in vain around solar. Suffice to say, I would still love to see that. We can't require it, obviously, but I think given the business that you're in, to show leadership there would be something that's really important. And so I thank you for that consideration. I have a motion and a second. All those, yeah.
Question regarding the stop out for EV vehicles in the future.
Yeah.
So one of the things mentioned in the staff report was requiring that now to have it subbed out for
Right.
EV. And,
Right.
The consideration of maybe adding a condition of approval to stub out for 3 stalls for EV.
Okay. Yeah. I'm
You
fine
go with that amendment?
Yes, I do.
You're comfortable with that?
And then
Okay,
this-
are you
Yep.
comfortable with that?
I am as well.
You're comfortable with that, okay. So, did you get that, guys?
Yep.
Yeah. Rough out for 3 EV stalls. Added to the motion with that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to seeing all the
Forward to
progress.
it.
You too.
So that takes us to number 5C, public hearing for Sunday Realty Company on the request of approval of its general development plan, GDP, for the site located approximately 112-208 Owen Road for mixed-use development. Case number 2-027-2021. Would you guys like to start us off tonight?
Hi, I'm Bert Slindy, Kevin Burrow and Jeff Slindy. Jeff Gillis is here as well as our partner and contractor. We've been before you a few times now and have done our level best to address recommendations and suggestions. And we've done everything we can do to implement them. I will say that we were also encouraged to get a traffic study done, which was addressed earlier. I'm just going to say that we had nothing to do with that traffic study, so the suggestion that we were manipulating our numbers is something I'm just going to have to respond to and say that we heard about the traffic study folks through the city of Sun Prairie and another transaction we were involved in, and a traffic study was done. We engaged those folks to do the work and stepped aside. So I just want to make that very clear that we've 100% have our hands off of that study. And having said that, we've gone forward with our efforts to modify plans and building elements, and so I'm going to ask Kevin to maybe review that with you folks, and if you have any questions, feel free.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Burrow with Canopian and Bruce Architects. So we've been working on this project for a number of months, and we've been before this commission on several occasions as well. So I know you know the background to the project. I'm not going to walk you through all the details, but I'd like to highlight the improvements that we made based on the feedback we received in the past. Predominantly, the main feedback was with regards to a question on density. What's the appropriate density for this site? How have we addressed it? How have we accommodated it with parking, et cetera, and also then amenities within the building. So overall, we have reduced the total density. In phase 2, we've reduced the density by an additional 3 units. And by doing so, the parking that we're able to provide without needing to provide any more asphalt on site is now accommodated, so we meet all the requirements within the zoning code for the minimum number of stalls provided. And then by reducing the unit count, we're then also to provide additional amenities within that second building as well. So we added additional community space both on first floor and on the upper floor. Now we are able to create an outdoor amenity with a community room and a rooftop plaza deck, which faces to the southeast, so you'd have views across Monona as well. And then additional amenities on first floor would include larger community room and a gaming space as well, a separate game room for additional activities. So throughout that did help balance out the overall mixture of number of parking stalls to unit count, et cetera. We've also made improvements with regards to energy efficiencies and energy conservation, I should say, with regards to the building. We do intend to install electric vehicle charging stations within both buildings. We've got it set up for 10 stalls on the first building, and then we'll evaluate the second building. When that comes online, chances are we'll have even more stalls in that building based on the market demand. Clearly, we need to provide accommodations for the residents that have electric vehicles. And then also we would be able to provide electric vehicle charging on the exterior, and then taking it to another level also for bike parking as well. So we're looking at doing a e-bike charging station within the first building as well. We've got a concentrated area of bike parking. In addition to a bike stall in front of every parking stall, we'll provide a charging station down in the basement level for electric vehicle or electric bikes as well. We have made improvements to the exterior with regards to the masonry that was presented predominantly at the last meeting. We've made some minor adjustments as well so that we have additional masonry along the base of the building, and then basically try to provide a cohesive design for the overall character of that. The site circulation was a concern as well. What happens phase 1 versus phase 2, and how does that function? So within the packet you can see a site circulation map as to how the post office can function either during construction or post-construction while they're still up and phase 1 has been complete. And then with the renegotiation of their lease, that now provides an ideal opportunity for the post office to transition into the phase 1 building upon completion under their current lease terms to be able to move over. And then should that take place, that obviously provides a much more easier opportunity to take down the phase 2 side of the project to provide additional housing for that site as well. Landscaping has been enhanced throughout the site, additional canopy trees. Per the request from the last meeting, we provided additional canopy trees on the back parking areas, and then also along the main drive in, we've also provided additional trees. We did a thorough study on the bird glass requirements. I do a lot of work in the city of Madison as well, so I'm very familiar with the bird glass ordinance. We do hold that as kind of the gold standard right now as far as where it's most appropriate. It was well vetted throughout the approval process in Madison as far as what size glass areas require bird glass, what size do not. We've done a thorough study of that and determined that it's really just the commercial space glass on first floor that would be a requirement in the city of Madison for bird glass. So we're certainly more than willing to evaluate that as we move forward on this project as well. But just to be assured that all the windows and the patio doors, et cetera, throughout the building would not require bird glass because of the sizing and the spacing of the mullions, et cetera. So we just wanted to reassure you on that. So that covers the main highlights of our recent changes. Actually, I did want to make one other comment. We always design our buildings to be able to accommodate solar panels anytime in the future. We engineer the roof structure so that they can accommodate it. If it's a desire of the developer as it's under construction, we'll run the conduits up to the roof. We'll be all set up. We'll allocate space in the basement for the sub-panels that need to be switched over so that the infrastructure is there and can be accommodated at any time. And solar arrays have become more feasible these days as well, so that is certainly something we will consider throughout the entirety of this project.
Thank you.
Any questions? I did bring along, it was mentioned last meeting that we had about the game room and amenity factors, and I happened to just this afternoon come across a picture of one of our game rooms that we found in another project, just to give you a flavor of the quality that we would expect to implement with it. So,
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak during the public hearing? Yes.
Question in relation, he said the post office could have operations during or post-construction, so I'd like to know which is it? Will they be able to operate during, or will they not be able to operate until after? Which is it?
They will stay fully functional throughout the entirety of construction.
Okay. And I know you heard all my comments earlier, so benefits to the community members.
Yeah. During the public hearing, you're welcome to come back up and speak, although, as you said, they heard your comments before, but it's not a back and forth between you and the developer. So certainly if you want to address any of what was raised by her in the beginning, anything else that was raised by her in the beginning, you're welcome to do that.
We don't anticipate having any crime issues here, if that's of importance.
we're going to have multiple cameras installed, and the quality and the level of, I just can't imagine we're going to have drug dealers in this building, and problematic situations. We manage a very tight operation, and we have on-site management. That's very important to the scale of everything, so that we have people who, in our case, in our Green Bay properties, actually live on premises. We have maintenance people that are minutes away. And so we fully expect and intend to bring this level of service straight forward. In terms of housing, I firmly believe there is a housing shortage in Winona, and I firmly believe, I've been in the real estate business for 45 years, and I've never seen it so tight. And I've observed lots of people who would like to move into Winona that have either been priced out or simply the supply is not available to address the demand. I know of multiple residents that really don't have a great alternative to where to downsize to. So that's my own personal opinion. And I also believe there's a shortage in workforce housing. And that's another element that we fully desire to bring forward here. And I don't apologize for it. I'm very proud of what we presented. I think it's a great project. And we've done our level best to deliver what we would like to have in Monona.
Okay, thank you.
Well, the minimum income would be about $42,000 to live here, so it's not low income as you thought.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyhow, that's-
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this and go to 5D, consideration of action for the Cindy Realty Company on the request of approval for a general development plan, GDP, for the site located approximately 112-208 Owen Road for mixed-use development, case number 2-027-2021. Doug?
Thank you. So, as mentioned, the application here is from the Cindy Realty Company for the just over 4-acre site with the intention to complete the project across 2 phases. The first phase would be the 102-unit apartment building with just over 3,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space. Second phase with 89-unit apartment building with 2,340 square feet of ground floor commercial space. Amenities have already been mentioned, outdoor plaza deck with games, grills and fire pits, pet run, interior community rooms and exercise spaces as well. The site was rezoned from retail business to community design district. This allows the applicant to pursue the planned community development approach, which in turn allows for the phase development and the flexibility that can bring. At this time, the applicant has agreed to focus on the general development plan, the GDP, which is effectively the master plan, with the intention to pursue the PIP, the precise implementation plan, shortly thereafter for phase 1, with phase 2 following in the coming years, again depending upon market forces. As mentioned, the rezoning took place. It was recommended at the January 24th Plan Commission meeting, with the City Council formally approving the request on February 21st. The site design itself, the lot coverage, there's over 55,000 square feet of green space when accounting for the ground floor or the plaza level green space as well. It was discussed at the last meeting that was deemed appropriate because it is heavily landscaped. It meets the intent of that open green space. Setbacks, as mentioned, the setback analysis was included in the materials, comparing the proposed layout to the adjacent buildings for reference. The traffic had been discussed both at Plan Commission and City Council. The applicant commissioned Kimley Horn to conduct the TIA. Entry and exit data from the site was collected, as well as analyzing Owen Road and Monona Drive intersection, and that was collected in mid-February, as I understand. The full report is included in the meeting packet for reference. And the findings show limited impact to the level of service at the adjacent intersections, with minimal roadway design changes recommended. The workforce housing component is viewed here to offer up to 50 units of rent-restricted units in the first phase. This would allow employees to live where they work, and again, would be 60 to 80% of the county median income. Parking has been adjusted slightly with the reduction of units. 309 stalls is what would be required by code, and that is now what is offered. One thing potentially for discussion here is if some sort of shared parking agreement should still be discussed, potentially for the commercial space, just allowing for off-hour parking, evening parking, things like that for visitors maybe coming to the residential building. Also, the EV stalls have been included in underground parking of phase 1, as well as the bike parking. The architecture and massing, the increase in masonry has been included. Slight reduction on the top level of phase 2 as well for that community space and the outdoor patio. Siding was something that was discussed at the last meeting, questions about the LP Smart Side siding. A couple examples were shared with the Commission. Most notably, locally, there's a very similar example over at the current 2, just on Bridge Road. Very similar, and it does have, as I understand, a 50-year warranty on that as well. And the bird glass was discussed by the applicant's architect. Again, finally, with the lighting and the landscaping, the proposed plans have increased the number of trees, increased the number of landscaping points, vis-a-vis the previous applications. A couple more canopy trees along the southern parking area, as well as one more buffer to the residential to the west. Additionally, a 4-foot fence is now proposed along that western property boundary for site security that had been discussed previously. With that, staff's recommendation is recommendation to the City Council for approval of the general development plan with the conditions and findings of fact as listed in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Chris, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I guess first to respond to some of the people that came to talk tonight. It's in their neighborhood. I know this is, we've never done it. This is a really odd way to have to do things, but we do follow Robert's rules. And you're allowed to ask the questions, and then if the commission feels those questions warranted, we have a chance to have a dialogue with the applicant afterwards. So it feels awkward, I'm sure, on your part, but it's just the way the Robert's rules carries it, and we operate by Robert's rules. So I think the first thing we should talk about is you all said that, well, this is a done deal. Well, no, but yes. What happened when the applicant came in, he said, here's my property, and what am I going to do with it? I understand being right next to it, it's scary for you, but do we really think commercial, a full commercial site there is viable? And the commission discussed that in depth, and we all agreed it's hard enough to maintain our commercial and retail space on Monona Drive. This is a tough place to get people to come a block off Monona Drive and come in there and use it. I know the strip mall is relatively full, but the strip mall is in need of a lot of work also. And to be able to think that we could put a long-term project in there with commercial, I think would be a poor decision on the Planning Commission's part. It's not reasonable. We're having a hard enough time in our major commercial districts. So at that point, as a planner, you need to look at it. What works here? I know one speaker talked about, well, you could have 190 homes. Well, clearly 190 homes don't fit on that piece of property. You could have a handful of homes. Would it be appropriate to put single-family homes with multifamily on 3 sides of them and commercial on the other side? And as a planner, you wouldn't do that. That would be an island of a few homes. That doesn't make sense either. So when we looked at it, what makes sense is, and I'm a very strong advocate for maintaining every ounce of commercial property we can in the city of Monona, and I think they can all attest to that. I'm sometimes on the short side of that argument. But we are asking to maintain some commercial. The post office is near and dear to everyone in Monona. It's been talked about at every meeting we've ever had. We've made a very strong case to the developer that if this project were to go ahead, this would be really important to the city of Monona. Developers explain it at other places that the federal government's tough to get a commitment from. They don't do leases over 90 days, and they won't say a lot. So we have to have a little hope and faith that we all use that post office. I know I make sure I go to that post office every time I have a letter of mail and anything we do, and that's the best way we can keep our post office is keep it busy. So I appreciate the fact that everybody does that. So it gets us to where we're at now today is what works here. And really what works is a mixed-use development. I would like to see more commercial. And the biggest question is for the residential, what's the correct density? The developer and certainly me, I think a number of other Planning Commission members have different ideas on what appropriate density is here, and I'll talk to that in a minute. But some level of density on this site for single-family housing is appropriate, and being bounded by multifamily on 3 sides, and then the commercial on the other, it's a place to finish out with multifamily. It has a transitional buffer, which you'd want as a planner to the I think there are 8 units of 2-story buildings that are right across the road from you, and that's what you'd design as a planner. You'd have what I would consider, what I would put in on a medium density, then a low density multifamily, and then across the street, it's not really miszoned. They're existing single-family homes, but they are in 2-family zoning. Because again, when the zoning map was put in, it was again a step down in the density, which would allow your neighbor to tear their home down and put in a duplex. But that's the way a lot of the zoning works, is to take that density down, down, down to buffer into the single family. So as far as what we put here, is it a done deal? The commission had a lot of discussion about this. And I think we pretty much to a person felt that we need to allow some type of multifamily with a mixture of commercial. At first, there was very little commercial. Now there's a little more than very little commercial. The biggest question, the elephant in the room, quite frankly, tonight is what density is appropriate there. But before I get to that, another speaker talked about the crime, and there's no doubt there's some crime in Winona, and there's no doubt that right now those units probably are some of the worst areas. And all I can tell you is we don't eliminate all single-family housing in Winona because multifamily housing because some have some crime. And what it really comes down to is who owns that property, who takes care of it, what do they do, number one, to screen their tenants. That's number one. Number two, what do you do to make it an attractive property? And we have asked the developer to come back numerous times, more amenities, more things that make it so if somebody wants to live here. It's really easy to build an apartment building and fill it up right away. Everyone wants to live in a new building. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what makes it where you really still want to be there? Which is why we're particular about amenities, about how much parking is there. You want reasons for people to be there, but you also don't want to have reasons where they want to leave. If there's not enough parking and they can't have their family over, if they can't have friends over, there's never anywhere to park, that's a reason to move to the next new one later. So it's important to the commission that there are amenities, that there's enough parking, that's a well-built project. I wish we could come in here and say anybody that owns that property has to go through us for their screening, but we can't. We don't have that right. So the people that own the property make the biggest difference in how they take care of it. And I believe with having an on-site manager, with the team they have in place, they'll probably do a pretty good job of screening those people because they have a lot of money invested in this. You also asked about taxes. That's a complicated question. Some apartments are built in TID districts, for example. And in a TID district, there are vehicles where the city, if they find a project they like, can help with some financing on it. And what that financing does is the taxes for that district is frozen when the TID is developed. And any increment, in other words, any additional value in there, those taxes can go towards paying back whatever amenities the city chose to put in that district. Now, that's not something Plan Commission handles. That's separate. That's CDA, Community Development Authority. So we have no say over that. I don't know if the developer is going to ask for money or not. If he does, the CDA will say, what's in it for the city? What are you going to bring that we need? And that's a discussion they have with them. It's not a discussion we have here at Planning Commission. I'm trying to think of all the questions. Traffic data, there were questions on this. I've got to say, I'm one of the people that believes that village lanes created a lot more traffic than this apartment building ever will. And the data, there are national standards, and the person that put that traffic plan together had to sign for it, which puts their license at risk. So I don't know if they tried to manipulate data. I can't say that. I read the report. I believe the report to be fairly accurate. I think one thing that might be confusing to some people in engineering speak when they talk about daily trips, if they say there's 400 daily trips, that's not 400 cars, that's probably 200 cars, because a daily trip is a trip there and also the trip when you leave. So every time a car comes and goes, that's 2 vehicle trips. So sometimes it's a little different to read that data. I don't know if that does any good to help you have any more faith in it. But we have to let design professionals, we read it, we question it to make sure it's accurate. But unless we have a reason to fight it, we don't. My impression, being in Winona my whole life, is I remember when Village Lanes was operating, and that was a lot of traffic going in all directions. I was there too. And apartment complexes don't generate the traffic you think they do sometimes. And everybody doesn't leave right at 8 o'clock. There's a big mix. So I don't know if I hit all the questions that were asked, but I tried to hit some of them, especially about is it a done deal? No, this is not a done deal. But is it a done deal that the commission feels multifamily housing with a mix of commercial is appropriate on this piece of property? I think that's fairly done. I think when we recommended the zoning change to the city council and they approved it, was with this intent, that it would be really difficult for us to have a successful commercial project on that entire parcel. So that's what got us to here today. So I hope that helps you a little bit. I know it's frustrating sitting there and not being able to have that dialogue, but if we had the audience debate every applicant that came, sometimes it gets pretty rowdy. So, and that's the whole purpose. And please don't think your voices aren't heard, because we've had people come before speak about this and speak against this project. Everybody would rather have a single-family home than an apartment built in their backyard. So what the commission is involved in tonight is to try to make sure, if there is a GDP passed tonight, that it's the best possible project we can have for Monona that we feel is appropriate. So after that, I'm sorry, I just thought it deserves
That's
some
great.
training.
That's great.
I'll go into mine, and then the elephant in the room is really density. I've asked every time you've been here to reduce the density, and there's been multiple commissioners that have had the same thoughts, and I'm a little disappointed that he came back and, well, we took out 3 units, we're good. There's too much density here. So for me, my opinion is if we were to pass this tonight, we need to reduce the density substantially, which we've always talked about. I know some of the figures that were put in our package show different densities. I don't think it's fair to compare this to the current. The current, if you're going to compare it, you have to compare it to the full development with the city park that was intended to be place for the current, with all the other spaces that the city built. This is a city development. They said, here's what we want, here's what we want there. And if you take it overall, if you take the current numbers over the acres they have, it comes out to like 28 dwelling units per acre. So if you really want to look at what we've approved and where it's worked in Monona, the biggest one on that list is really Fairway Glen. And I think that was around 38 or 39 dwelling units per acre. And when we've gone to all our charts previously, Doug, too, that's been one of the highest ones that comes there all the time. And I believe that's a number we have to stick to for this. My proposal for tonight would be 40 dwelling units per acre. That's the number we've worked with. It's the number we can do, which would mean 161 dwelling units. It's substantially different than what you keep presenting, but we have sent that message multiple times about density. Now, what that would allow, in my opinion, is, number one, I think this project, I know you've worked hard on it, but I think this project is still 2 really tall, really rectangular buildings that would tower over the rest of this neighborhood. To the east, we have 1-story and 2-story buildings. To the south, we have 3-story buildings. To the west, we have 2-story buildings. And to the north, we have 2 and 4-story, but it's not 4-story through the whole thing. This is massive compared to all of those. I think it would help with that massing, with a lot of the straight faces, and it's intimidating when you're next to 2 4-story buildings driving down the middle. It's not the feel, and it doesn't fit with the neighborhood. I don't believe. We'll see what everyone else thinks, but I know I've heard that message consistently from other planning commission members. I think having less density allows you to, number one, I think parking to hit the bare minimum of the city standard is asking for trouble. You're 2 bedrooms, you're 3 bedrooms, you say a 2-bedroom, the city standard is 2 cars, right? Well, a lot of these might just have roommates. They already have 2 cars. Where are any visitors going to park? Where is anyone going to be? Because we're in a neighborhood, we talked about this, we're in a neighborhood where there is 0 excess parking. In fact, there's overflow right now that's parking on the Village Lanes lot. I know that's not their prerogative, but once you build, that won't be there. There will be no parking anywhere. Owen has no parking on it. Anthony will be parked full. There isn't going to be anywhere for anyone to go. And I go back to what makes this project successful. And I think you have a lot of studios, 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms. I think when I live there and I want to have more than 1 or 2 friends over, or I want to have my family over there, it takes some parking. And I think if people are there, it's fun when it's new, and after it's been lived in for a while, it's like, I really love it, but it's just not enough parking to have my friends over, to have my family over. And for me, that carries through to the, what do you call them? The common area, the open space, the amenity in the building for the people to gather at. I don't remember what you called it. But I believe the reduction in density also allows you an opportunity to do that in building number 1. Because if I live there, I have my family over, I've got a 1-bedroom, I can't have them all over there and have Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, or when my buddies are over there to watch a game. Community room, I think is what you called it. Well, I just can't see me walking out of building 1 over to phase 2 and up there to entertain my family or my friends. I don't think that'll happen. I think with that many units, they'll be overwhelmed anyway. I think reduction in density allows you to change that massing, or maybe you can step back some of that 4th floor. Maybe you can do some things to get some stuff out. Maybe there's just some, this is where they're, sorry, how'd that sound? where there isn't a building in one area, you create two more corners where people love to have cross ventilation through their apartment instead of just one window, or maybe not too good. It allows you the chance to have more roof decks and things. And I'm not telling you how to design it. I'm telling you what I feel the appropriate density for this project is. We were hoping to have you come back with something, and it didn't happen. But if we approve a GDP tonight with 190 units, that is their right to go build 190 units. And I think I've heard from every single person that there's just too much density here. If we approve GDP tonight with, for example, use that 40 dwelling units per acre, that is their right to come back and build 161 dwelling units on this property, which I think this property can support, and I think will be a good project for the developer. Now, if you came back to me, you said, I've redone all this, and I've got it just tuned in, but man, I got 163 dwelling units. I mean, I don't want to start down that path, but would I take a look at that? Absolutely. Right. And if the commission as a whole felt it was an appropriate project, we could still recommend to the city council that they allow that. Because all we do tonight, too, is recommend to the city council as their decision at the end. Right. So I also don't think that this will eliminate the opportunity for workforce housing. Let's be honest about that. What is 60% of the EMI? Is it $60,000, $80,000? You're in that range. And that's your target audience. That's the people you're building for. So to say, well, we won't have workforce housing, I don't believe that, because you get your rents up above what they can afford, I don't think you'll fill it up because you won't be competitive with everyone else around town. That 60, 80% EMI is your customer. So I believe that it won't have much grant. Now, will they be able to afford every apartment unit in there? No. But there'll be a lot of them they can afford. This is a GEP we're talking about tonight, so I love all the details, thank you, because we can give you feedback before you come in with a PIP, but what we're looking at tonight is really density, circulation, roads, the things that say we're tying in what this thing can be and what will be allowed on this property. I appreciate getting a plan that showed how the Phase 2 existing strip center would tie in with this. One correction I would make is you have one entrance to it on the north end of the north building, which makes it a really, really long dead-end parking lot all the way down. So I think one thing that would have to happen is at the south end of the north building, keep that entrance that's there right now. Or if you want to move it, I don't care. But you need to have, that main parking lot would actually have circulation back to the road, right? The way it is right now, it's just a dead end. And the south building will still have a dead-end parking lot, but that's what's there right now, and that functions. But that way we can keep it functional. So for me, for the GDP, that would be important. I see on there that you need to revise a lot line. I wonder if you could speak to that. We've never talked about that. Is that because of how you're placing buildings?
I don't think that's correct.
The plan shows a revised lot line.
Okay.
And it talks about a future CSM, and that's something I'm going to mention, is if you're revising a lot line, you need a CSM. Well, the other people are speaking, how about this? Instead of holding up everybody, when everybody else is speaking, I'll find the plan sheet that says it, but it talks about a revised property line, and it doesn't look to me like the strip center would be sitting over a property line. It doesn't look like your new building would be over a property line. The only reason to revise that would be if you had a change of ownership in the property and wanted to adjust something, or we can't allow a property line to go through a building. But I don't believe any of these existing property lines would go through a building, much less a new one. So that's something that would be important. That's something we'd have to look at. And that CSM, if we approve this, and if you go ahead, would have to be concurrent with the PIP. That's pretty much it for me for the GDP, because the GDP is really this overall thing. One thing I will say to the PIP when it comes, I know I've heard it before too, needs more brick. I appreciate it being all wound around on the base, but it needs more brick, and we'll just see what everyone else says. But that's not a GDP issue, but I think it's something that, at least for me, I want to keep bringing up. Thank you.
Thank you. Corinne?
Just clarification of something. So you're saying having another exit on this?
No, it's the new plan we got that I can't remember where it was now. I'll find it.
C11?
Yeah. Yes, that's...
C1.
Yes. That's, so on C11, the only access to the strip mall, it's the C11. It's the revised one. And no, they're both C11.
Right.
Okay, so in this revised one, the entry to this parking lot's up on the north, and that's the only way in of that.
Okay.
And right now, there's a entrance
Yes.
right down by the south end of the building. That would mean you would lose 2 to 3 stalls right now for phase 1, but you'd be able to recapture those when you did phase 2, but you'd lose 2 or 3 stalls to have a guarded entry to get into that south end. But what happens right now is this parking lot on the west side of the building does have circulation through there. Especially if somebody's queuing here for the post office and somebody else they can come back that way. But it's a reasonable circulation instead of a dead-end parking lot.
Okay.
It's a minor deal. It costs very little other than you lose 2 to 3 stalls if and when you build phase 2. It makes it more convenient. There's an entrance there right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just, there's a lot of, we all use the different driveways to get to the post office, so, okay. I was glad to have the traffic analysis to look at, because that was a concern of mine.
I put it on silent.
No, it's everybody.
It's emergency alert. I put it on silent too, but it doesn't my attention on silent.
It's not a tornado.
Okay. I turned that off on mine.
Do you?
Yeah, it took me a while to find it.
I had one.
What if that was a tornado coming here?
It was just a slipper alert.
It's the Amber Alert. It's not a tornado or anything else.
Okay. Yeah, so I was glad to have the traffic analysis. I was concerned about that, and so that made me feel a little better about it. The point that Chris brought up is really what I was thinking about too, with if you're living there, I think a lot of people would want to live here. I think you've done a beautiful job of making this desirable and meeting the needs that you are seeing, people that are looking to downsize, that want to have a nice place to go within the community. I think this would be a wonderful choice, and I think people would choose it. I think there's a lot of others that would just be looking to live in Monona, maybe eventually moving into a home. I think it really fills that niche. But it really does seem like it would be difficult to have visitors to come over. And it's something that we have, I had a friend that lived at the Current, and it was really difficult to ever drive down and park, because it was, that has, more commercial and retail and that sort of thing. But I've heard other people complain about that too. And parking is really, I wish it wasn't such a big consideration, but it is. And if you do have a community room and you're anticipating that people are going to be able to have their birthday parties or any kind of gathering, there needs to be opportunities for their visitors to conveniently come and visit. So I don't know what the right density would be. Chris recommends the 40. I'd like to hear what the other commissioners have to say, but I do think that it is very tight right now. There is a lot of density here, and I don't think, given the location, there really isn't anywhere for that overflow parking to go. We heard from others about the parking on Anthony and how that's always parked up as well, and there's really not a lot of other choice. I think people would move over to Pheasant Hill and start parking down there, and that would be pretty far. So that was really my biggest consideration or question about this.
Patrick?
May I ask Mr. Slendy a question? My question is this project viable for you at 163 units?
Not phase 1.
Not phase 1?
No. We have a purchase price in place, and that's predicated.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm asking, because you know what you paid for it. You know how this works. So that's the consideration I have. And there's no other creative way to address the parking issue without redesigning the building in some fashion. So I guess I'm just trying to determine this density issue for myself as well. So, but again, if it's not viable, it's not viable, and we all have kind of come to the conclusion that mixed use is ideal for the space. And I guess as a commissioner, I'm willing to go up with the density a little because of the affordable aspect. If there wasn't an affordable aspect and it wasn't geared towards people at 60 to 80% of county median. If there weren't units available, then I probably would be less likely to do that. But I think that I would consider the increase in density because of that. Otherwise, I think it's a solid project. But I would still like to see if we can address that density issue, because Chris, what you say absolutely makes sense as well. So, so I guess that's where I'm at on that, and that's all I have right now.
Okay.
I guess the other thing too is that I did want to speak to the fact, I did want to speak to some of the comments earlier too about, apartments equal crime, and that's just not. I don't believe that. I've lived in apartments. I've lived in dense apartment communities that have less crime than campus in Madison. So really, I think that that's kind of something that I think is just fear more than anything else. So, thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Sure. Well, I'll jump in. Density is the key term here. And one of the pieces that we've talked about previously is oftentimes our parking dictates and helps us understand are we hitting a density issue or not. And I think what's complicated by that is the idea of where are you meeting a minimum threshold and where do you have opportunity for overflow in other spaces that make sense. And I would agree. I know this area quite well. I live 2 blocks from the area. And I know parking is already kind of taxed on many of the streets next to this location. And so I fear the overflow issue, there isn't much overflow anywhere in the area. When it relates to where's the magic number, I'm not sure where the magic number is. In past meetings, I asked for the density. I'm so sorry, I didn't keep my old sheets to remember where they were for the buildings that are on the south of this property and to the north of this property. And I know those have been provided to us before, so I apologize for not bringing those. And that had to do with some adjoining properties that have been able to kind of contain the level of density on their site. Now, we are talking about properties that are targeting a different type of audience that may not have as many vehicles and clearly are not taking the same number of trips in and out, which, while we're looking for those numbers, kind of leads me to the question about the traffic study. It is the question on table 5 around the idea of how many trips are generated by a strip mall or strip retail plaza, and assuming that the post office is in both, so they kind of take that out of the equation. I can see how that makes sense from an analysis standpoint. And I think that's what we have to believe in is the analysis that exists. So whatever sites are in that retail strip now, that could turn over and it could be a different commercial property that has a different level of trips. So let's, so you have to have some type of common denominator that this type of strip center produces this type of volume, even though the current tenants might not produce that same equal volume. At a planning level, we have to take into consideration what exists there right now may not exist there next month, next year. So that's where I think we do need to believe in the traffic study and the professionals that go in to doing that level of analysis and being able to rely on their analysis of this particular situation to determine the volume. I was a little surprised of the impact of going left on Owen being listed as it was. However, I don't have any data to dispute that, and that's not my area of expertise for sure.
Did your engineering staff have a chance to look at, not staff, but your consultant look at the traffic study?
Yeah, sorry. If you could come up to the podium to ask that question, that would be great.
There are some stalwarts that still are listening.
Yeah. My question was, Is the city's engineering staff or consultant, did they review the report?
We did not share it at this time with them, so I checked with staff for that question. There had been some discussion as to whether a second TIA, and this was prior to this being produced, would be a conflicting TIA or a sort of second one from a different firm would be needed. But the response that I got, that in the past, if there has been a question or something like that, it would maybe go out to, I think it would be Strand Associates that would review that. So that could be something. It was not something that was done. But they could potentially check the methodology or sort of that if that's the will of the commission.
Chris?
I'm just going to add to that. That's a good answer because our engineering staff are not traffic engineers, so they're not going to look at a traffic study and countermand what a traffic engineer did and signed. That's a very specific profession. So we can still do whatever we choose to do tonight. And the city, if something were passed here tonight, then the city council would have to look at it, and there'd be time if somebody decides they want to have it re-reviewed. But I will say it's awful very usual for a design professional to review another ones and say there's a major gap in this study. But maybe there is.
Okay, thank you. Did you have anything else, Brian? Or you?
Were we able to find the density? No, not yet. I'm hoping. Right. we can swing back to that piece because I think that is an area that I really do want to look at. I think it meets the bare minimum here. And I think some of the concern has to do with the commercial space, not necessarily that there's going to be pushing for parking space for the commercial. The aspect of shared parking, that doesn't even concern me. I'm concerned more about the overflow parking for the number of residential units, to be honest. As it relates to what Patrick brought up regarding the insinuation that apartment dwelling brings additional crime, I would say that what Chris indicated, that what addresses primarily crime in any location has to do with the investment of owners, the investment of other types of activities to help suppress and address issues as they come up. And like I said, I live a couple blocks from this exact area, and I would agree that when there are concerns in our neighborhood, it is up to us as the owners and occupiers of that neighborhood. And if this development were to go in there, just as much as their issue to address as is mine as a homeowner down the street. What does increase criminal activity, and I saw the police chief on earlier, might be off now, would be units that are not well kept and do not have people that are invested in addressing screening, investing in surveillance and other types of techniques to help address crime. I'll leave it at that for now until we talk density.
Okay, thank you. Rob?
In general, looking at this plan from a site plan standpoint, I don't have an issue. I think it's a good project. I think it's appropriate mixed-use development. Now, I said site plan. When you start looking at the elevations of the building and the density, I've been very clear since the very first time I saw it. I thought the density was too high. You stated that you couldn't reduce any density and make it a profitable project. I had my questions about that. You reduced density already, and I think it should be more. And not so much from, definitely from a parking standpoint, there is no excess parking, and I have questions about whether a shared parking agreement with the commercial tenants is a good idea, given that use, if it's the post office, would get used first thing in the morning. If there's guests or tenants parking in those spaces, I think there could be a conflict with that. But also looking at how the proposed development fits into the neighborhood. And I said at the last meeting and probably the one before that, I think there should be more articulation on the building, not necessarily from the C is fine, the site plan's fine, but I think stepping in some of the architecture to kind of make that transition, because the properties to the south and to the north, those multifamily, they do a much better job of doing that. It's a much better transition into that residential and that medium density. I had a question about the workforce housing. Is that a done deal? Like, because you're applying for some loans and things, correct?
Correct.
But there's no assurances you're going to get those loans, or is there?
No. There's no assurance that we'll get any loan.
Okay. So how do we? It's part of the proposal, but we don't even know if that's.
We have met with people and we've been encouraged. Our banker actually directed us to this.
If we're going to
But
discuss
say
it,
we-
we should get up.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So we've had initial conversations with them, and they are 100% supportive of us bringing the project forward for an investment in the workforce housing fund.
That's great. From the city standpoint, I don't know how this is handled. It's more of a question to the commission, to the city staff, to you. If we approve this GDP with the understanding that there's going to be a workforce housing component, and that loan does not come through, is that out of the project?
Well, it's going to, obviously, it's going to come back to a TIP conversation with the CDA as well.
Okay.
So the CDA and the workforce housing loan are going to basically work hand in hand.
Okay.
So, there's going to be conversations with that as well.
Okay. It's just a point I wanted to bring up.
Right.
Thank you. Chris?
The CDA has the authority, if
Right.
they choose, to put conditions on the development such as that. We really don't.
Okay.
But if they put money in a project, they can condition that money.
Okay.
Right.
And that's been part of our ambition from the absolute day of the first discussion about if we were to develop this, what are we going to do here?
Right.
So,
Yeah, and I think everybody's supportive of that element.
and that's
But it's just a clarifying question. Just to bring up.
Right, and just Rob, just to follow up on that, the funds that they would seek for affordable housing is a different bucket of funds than, for instance, the development that we did on Broadway. The development
Correct.
we did on Broadway, the entire development was wrapped in. This is an ongoing grant program, so they're not bound by the same, have to submit something by December or else.
Right.
Right, it's a whole different.
Yes, understood.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
That's the plan sheet. Gotcha. Okay.
Let's see here.
Thank you. I'll look into that.
In regards to the traffic study, I appreciate you doing that. I'm very honest. I'm not professionally equipped to understand all the nuances of that. I see 10 new. I have my doubts, but I think what Chris said is that someone's professional integrity is behind this study. Being a licensed professional, I don't willy-nilly stamp plans that I don't believe in. So maybe someone with a little more brain power and traffic studies could look at that. One note in the staff report, there was report findings show limited impact to the level of services adjacent intersection with minimal roadway design changes recommended. Maybe I missed that, but is there roadway design changes that were recommended?
I don't recall seeing that in the report as
Okay,
well.
maybe it's just a note.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't see it.
Okay. That's all I have.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot different to add. I think it's been hashed out pretty thoroughly. I was very pleased with how responsive I felt you were to all the things the issues that we had raised before, including even third class. Had some of the same concerns about density, and mostly around the parking. I mean, I think my thought from the beginning was that this wouldn't likely have so much impact on traffic, but I'm glad you did the traffic study, just because I do think people come and go at different times. They're going to find different routes. Some will go west on Owens, some will turn left on Monroe Drive, some will turn right. There will be some differences there. I like the design basically a lot. It maybe could use some more brick. I'm okay with the siding. I mean, I could go out around and look at that. I've read more about it. That's part of it. I think that part concerns me less, and you have done a little bit to change the design. I think if you could reduce the density a little bit, there might be more opportunities to set setbacks and things to make it look a little nicer. I always like to see a little more actual green space than including the open space, but we did talk about that before, and we agreed it would kind of work because you have those outdoor patios, and I think that makes up for that. I do want to stress, too, that when we talk about workforce housing here, we use the term affordable and workforce housing kind of together. You know, when you talk about 60 to 80% of the average median income, we're talking here about teachers, paramedics. You listed a lot easier in your report, but this is all true. Other school staff, bank tellers, loan officers. We're not, you know, we're talking about people who right now it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard for a teacher to buy a place to live in Monona right now. And I think there is a need for that, and I do appreciate that being part of it. I think the other key thing that I want to emphasize again, I think this was already said, that this developer will continue to own and manage this property. They have a lot invested in it. They are going to take care of it. It isn't going to be let go. I mean, it is a nice quality project. It is surrounded on 3 sides by multifamily housing already and commercial on the other. So to me, it's very appropriate. I guess I just want to emphasize all those because those questions seem to keep coming up. And I think, you know, the post office, part of that issue was their lease was going to be up this year. I mean, it was questionable whether they were going to stay where they currently are. So they're encouraged by this new space, and there's a tentative agreement to maybe extend the lease into 2024. It has to be approved by the federal government. They do move very slowly. So some of that is out of the hands of this developer. I just want to make sure that's fair. All of us love the post office. We all wanted to stay here. And because this is a phased development and the post office would go into the first phase, it would be completed. They would move over before there was any demolition of the existing other building. Yeah, I guess the only remaining concern for me really does continue to be the density, and I'm not sure what the right number is either, and I'm not sure what you feel is viable. I mean, if the density on the first phase remained similar to what it is, but the density was reduced on the second phase, I don't know if that could help. I mean, I don't think the shared parking is a great idea. I mean, I think the post office does have to have some dedicated parking. And you don't know what kinds of businesses might go in that second phase. I mean, you don't have a whole lot of other commercial space in this first phase, but the second phase may well be 1 or 2 cars, and it may well be during regular work hours. But, you know, if you have a law office, for example, they may want that at night as well. I mean, because they work all hours. So I think that's hard to count on. And I do agree with all the comments that what makes a place nice to live is, and one of the factors is that when you can have friends over, you don't have to worry about where you're going to park, and you don't have to park 3 blocks away. And having had kids who live in urban areas where I do have to park several blocks away, sometimes it's hard. And I think that has been a little bit of a problem at the front. Even if you go to pick up food, for example, at Buck and Honey's, it can be a challenge. So I think that's an issue. I don't know if 40, well, I guess I'm kind of more inclined to agree with Patrick's comment of I'd be willing to go a tad higher than 41 or 40, whatever was said earlier, for the density. And maybe more density in the first phase, less in the second. I don't know. I guess that'd be my one remaining concern. Otherwise, I think I should write on my notes on 1 page, but I think everything else has really been covered, so. I think that's all.
Thank you, Susan.
Sure.
I would just, yeah.
I have the densities.
Thank you. I knew that you would come up with that.
So just so everyone knows, the
Can you identify yourself just
Sorry.
so people know?
Hi, everyone. My name is Elisa Guerrero. I'm a planning intern / sustainability coordinator for the city. So Heritage Senior Center, which is across the street to the north, is about 48 units per acre. And then Frostwoods, which is just to the south of this parcel, is about 34 units per acre.
34 per acre.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Those are 2 you were thinking? Okay. Great. Thank you. I
do have one last comment, if I may.
Sure.
We were invited by the village of Ashwaubenon to develop housing there. We had an area that was crime-ridden, They had drug issues. They had tough times. We've built 2 buildings there now. They're both full with really good occupants. We run a very tight ship, and if this property were to go sideways, it'd be on us. And I just want to make that statement. And we do intensive screening. We put up with a little bit, but not a whole lot. And some of the Packer players are a little rough to deal with. But the rules are the rules. End of story. And people understand that when they're enforced. So I just want to alleviate that this is not going to bring the chaos and the uncertainty that I think we are all afraid of and not interested in. So.
Thank you. Let me just add, I was just going to add to the feedback of the rest of the group. I think it's safe to say, you heard it, as Chris pointed out in the very beginning, we've been talking about density from the very beginning. And I, like some others here, I think really pretty much everybody here, don't feel like the 3 units that you backed off between the last time we saw you and this time is enough. And we talked then about the fact that the current was not an accurate comparison for all the reasons, again, that Chris already talked about. But I want to, in the interest of fairness, I want to say I really appreciate the attention to the EV and to the e-bikes and to automatic roughing out of solar that you talked about in any of your facilities, and the work that you did. So and the additional amenities that you talked about tonight. So it's not like I don't feel like you're listening to us, because I do. And I really appreciate those extra efforts. I am concerned that in phase 2, and I recognize that again that we're not at the PIP phase, but or at phase 2 for that matter, except to say that when we look at a GDP, we look at a whole development. We don't just look at a piece, right? And I am concerned that in phase 2, and in the interest of affordable housing, which I totally appreciate and completely support for Monona, that somehow that's translated into a building that's of lower quality and a higher density, which is to say it doesn't have the amenities, it doesn't have the green space, it doesn't have the other things that the other building would have. And as somebody who has spent their whole life in the nonprofit sector, I don't believe that people that choose the honorable profession, some of which Susan just mentioned, should be living in less quality, less interesting housing, recognizing it's not going to be luxury. I'm not going to get a pool like I might get at the current, but still, I think in terms of the interest of long-term tenants and high quality tenants, you want a high quality building. So anyway, I appreciate all of those things, but I think we obviously still have an issue with density. And of course, when you get to the right density, or when we get to answering, bringing that density down some, I think that gives you that much more flexibility around the articulation in the building that we talked about. So it's not just kind of more of a big box around things like brick that potentially that Chris talked about, and more amenities in the building itself as opposed to residential units. So I share the rest of this commission's concern around the overall density. I'm not sure what the exact number is, which of course is going to be the challenge for us as a commission. But it doesn't sound like we're certainly prepared to act tonight, given those concerns on the GEP. Is that fair to say?
I'd have a hard time I mean, if we have to put the number in here, I think it would be, for me, that'd be the only issue. Chris had his hand up, though. Yeah.
I would just disagree in that we can put a number in.
We can commit to a number.
And if we put that number in, the applicant has the right to that.
Right.
Period.
Right.
If they come back with something that's a little more, and the commission agrees this works, this hits all the numbers, we have the ability to authorize more.
Right.
We just can't have them do less once we set a number. If they have the right for that number.
I understand that. It just didn't sound to me in listening to commission members that we had a number that we had consensus on, or at least but all we can do is make a motion. If somebody wants to make a motion around a specific number.
I thought I just heard you might be able to, I mean, do you have a thought of, I don't know. No, not really. Okay.
We need to set a number. We've danced around this thing 3 different meetings on density. We've gotten nowhere.
Right.
And when we set a number, they have that right. Now, if they come back, they can always come back with a plan and say, well, this hits all the targets you've been looking for. We have a little more density. We have the right to approve that.
Right.
We can't take away. Once we set a number, we can't say, nah, that one doesn't work. You got to take more out because I don't like it. So, and I will respond to those densities. The one to the south was whatever, 37, I think, 34, and then the one to the north was 48. Well, for the 48, they don't drive most of them.
Right.
In the apartment building they do, but in the assisted care, there's
right.
no cars, there's no need for the parking and things there.
Right.
So that's a little bit of a false comparison.
If I can just jump in too, we have a lot of studios and one-bedrooms, active, younger people that will ride bikes. We have how many bike stalls here? So it won't be the only mode of transportation, but not everybody's going to be driving the car every single day.
I got an answer to that. I agree, but we live in Wisconsin, and most of us are not hurting enough to drive in the winter.
Right now.
I know plenty of them out there. There are plenty, but most of us don't ride a bike to work in the middle of the winter. So we have to be prepared for cars.
Right. So, Rob.
Oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to, I mean, again, I wasn't suggesting that we do nothing. I was just feeling like that we didn't have a number on the floor. If somebody would like to make a motion as to put a number on the floor.
Let's hear what Rob has to say.
Well, I was going to say, I'm okay. I'm comfortable setting a number with the reason that Chris just stated that they can always ask for more. And if we set it at 40 and they came back higher, but it worked better, I'm comfortable approving that. As long as the project kind of, because I have more concerns with just density and parking, it's the form and the massing of the building. And I think the building needs to be addressed to fit into the neighborhood better. And that's something I haven't heard other people talk about, and I'd be curious. I guess you commented a little bit about what your thoughts on the building were, but
I did.
But that's a point of contention with me.
Right.
So with your comment there, could that be addressed during the PIP process?
Good point. I don't know if that can be addressed there, but Chris.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I keep doing this to you, but I've lived through a lot of GDPs and PIPs around here, so absolutely the final building design gets addressed in the PIP.
Right.
The GDP sets the sideboards.
Sure.
If you come back with a building that maybe doesn't even meet everything we talked about, but it's at 40 dwelling units per acre, we can't ask you to take down less, or go down to less units, because we've already given you the right to have 40 dwelling units per acre on that piece of property. And what we do may not be what the city council does. They might have a totally different idea. But assuming we did something tonight, and assuming the city council passed it, when you come for your PIP, you always have the right to say, this is what we have, this is what we can do. Here we've hit your design elements, we've hit the amenity features, and I will mention, I talked about the community room in both buildings, but people aren't going to go between buildings to entertain their family. And again, we're in Wisconsin. Sometimes I love what you put outside, but sometimes you can't be out there. It's windy, it's rainy, it's snowing, whatever. But the answer to the question is yes. The final design is addressed in the PIP. We set density, massing, access, the general kind of things like that, so that as a developer, you know you have the right to this. Sure. When you come back with a PIP, you can always ask for changes. but we can't ask you to go back more once we pass it. That makes sense to you? We can't ask you to, well, we don't like it, now lower it to 30. We don't have that right anymore.
Right, so, yeah, and just, Rob, again, just to be clear, well, I mean, I was speaking to the issue of the whole articulation and the amenities of the second unit and stuff. I mean, in fact, you know, when I looked at in the last pre-hearing on the first building, I mean, of course, we're all super impressed with the whole patio and the grilling area and all of that, but I thought, okay, if I live in building 2, on the 4th floor, am I going to take my plate of burgers
So we did
and
that.
go down 4 flights and across the street and through to get to a single grill when I've got 200 other units in the building? I mean, so again,
One time.
huh?
One time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did add community spaces, grilling spaces in building 2 because of your suggestions.
Right, but still, my point was around building 2, what you've got there right now is a postage stamp in terms of the potential green space for building 2. It's not very big in comparison to building 1. It's a very small potential growth space. But again, that's detail. What we need to focus on tonight, although, you know, to Chris's point, we are talking about massing, which is going to change if your density is going to change. The whole building shape is going to change, really.
Well,
could change for this number of stories.
I'm not suggesting that. I don't. To be clear, I don't have an issue with materials and the overall aesthetics. It's the massing.
Right.
Like, I'm not looking for you to re-articulate the whole building. It's how do you scale it back a little bit?
So I understand massing. Are you referring to Owen Road or more on Anthony Place or next door to the senior center, or not senior center, but what's the Frostwoods? Excuse me, Frostwoods.
To the south and to the north, I think is. I don't know. I don't want to get too far in the designing of your building, but do you understand what I mean by taking the top floors and
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at is what is massing at the definition here today.
Is that stepping it back?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So in elevation, it's not a rectangle. You know, you get some articulate. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Thank you.
Chris?
I would agree. I'd say we're not talking about changing the footprint. And when you asked me which elevation, you said, is it this one, this one, or this one? My answer would have been yes.
All of them. All right.
Right. So, do we have a number that we feel comfortable? Do we have a motion in terms of it? I mean, Chris offered a number earlier.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the city council approve the GDP with the findings of fact as written by staff, condition 1 and 2 is written by staff, condition 3 that's a maximum density of 40 dwelling units per acre, and condition 4 that the second access as discussed tonight be put in for the for south entrance to the north building.
It's east and west building. I'm confused.
Yeah.
The east building.
You said that before, so I don't quite understand that point. The buildings are in east and west.
The east building.
North is Owen Road, correct?
Great. So
Okay, so strip mall, the northern building, the southern end of it.
Oh, he's taking the end.
Oh.
Okay, where's that? What sheet is that? C111?
C11.
Okay, here's the sheet, the overlay that shows the strip mall. And right now, the main road goes through here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it here. And on your plan, there's a single entrance here for this entire parking lot. In reality, right now, there's also entrance right here. This would be the north building, and that would be the south end of the north building.
Oh, I see.
Oh, then, okay.
So in the event that there wasn't phase 2, we would still have a secondary cross-access.
For the whole time that there's only phase 1, that there'd be a full circulation in this main parking lot for the north building. Right now, you have a dead end here. There's nothing to do about it, but it would maintain the existing conditions. You go out there and look, you've got an access point right there right now for the whole neighborhood.
There's, I think, 3 of them.
Yeah, otherwise, you're loading a long dead-end parking lot. And hopefully, if this happens, the whole time you're doing it, this stays successful, and you have a lot of people coming and going. Good. That's right.
Okay.
Okay, did I finish that?
Did you get all of them?
Yes.
I do, I don't know.
I got the 2 additional conditions. The second access point is discussed. That was as far as I got with that.
Well, the other one was a 40 dwelling units per
Yes,
acre.
I got those.
41 per acre.
So just for the interest of clarity, could you read the motion again, just to be sure that you have it all?
So, as I understand, it would be the recommendation to City Council with the 2 findings of fact as listed in the staff report, conditions 1 and 2 as listed in the staff report, condition 3, that the density cannot exceed 40 dwelling units per acre, with suggested condition number 4 that there be a second access point on the northern the existing strip mall, as discussed tonight. That, and I have the visual of that, so I can better articulate that.
Okay. So what was 40,
Was
not
that
41?
your-
I thought I heard you say 41. You said 40, 40.
40, yes.
Okay.
Which ends up being 161 units,
Right.
I believe, the way it's
We should
currently.
probably have a second to actually
I know,
discuss it.
we're going to. I'm
Right,
just.
so you just want to clarify what it is.
So, is that
Correct.
your motion in full?
Correct.
So I have a motion in full, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second. Any other discussion?
Go first.
Oh, what I was going to say is, what I think is similar with this particular site with Fairway Glen,
Yes.
as it relates to density. Fairway Glen was in a similar situation where they had properties on the north and the south of that property, where we knew there was no spillover. It was the drive on the other side, and then behind it already had parking concerns with the neighborhood, where they also did some additional townhomes back there. So they had a little bit more kind of leeway with what parking may exist directly behind that unit. But it was really expected to have no spillover into the community. And I think a similar type of reasoning with the density level here as it relates to parking and overflow is appropriate. So
I would agree, but I still put in Rob's point, the building massing, the articulation in the building, gives opportunity for that.
Any other comments on the motion that's on the floor? Questions, comments? Chris?
If you'd allow me just to make a general comment, because once we vote on it, whatever happens, everyone's going to leave. I really appreciate people from the neighborhood coming out and speaking. You may not feel like you've done a lot tonight, but it's important to come, and it's important when the PIP is discussed to come, because everything we do ends up making a project, in my opinion, better when we make some of these things. And we're all interested in trying to make this the best project we can for Monona. So please don't stop being part of things.
I agree. I agree. I was going to speak to that before we adjourn, but a good point. So any other comments before we vote? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So will that be on the next city council meeting agenda?
That's up to the mayor and the city administrator, but I would assume so. Either the next one, for a first read, likely the next one, or the one after. Yes. Again, community members who came, thank you for coming. Slendies, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation and your work on this again. We didn't even look at the siding. We didn't even look at the siding. I have that siding. So, I have, yeah. Takes us to new business.
Thank you. As far as economic development update, potential upcoming plan commission items, couple items coming forward for the March 28th meeting. Got a sign permit application, possibly the Go Right Way application as well, the bus application that was discussed at the last meeting. Just for workflow, I may well put that on the next meeting as well. The Whitehorse site, there has been some discussion there about one of the next parcels, and I'm waiting for the application there to be able to discuss further, but just know that staff has had a discussion about that. It would be the southernmost parcel closest to the Beltline. And so that is in discussion, and I'm expecting an application for consideration or for a pre-hearing discussion, most likely at this point in April. I need to check my emails though, see if it may have just come in. But those are the items sort of moving forward at this point. And moving into April, as far as the multifamily projects go, the Bloom project, they are expecting, I think there'll be some sort of staff level review in early April, and then they're looking probably late April to come back to the commission again with some revisions. The traffic engineer is working on a TIA as we speak. So for that one. Thank you.
Do we have any updates on diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I do. I received an email from Dane County Planning Department today. It was a really pretty informative email. They've been working as a department a lot on DEI and specifically the impact that planning can have on that, and sort of especially some of the historical implications of planning and development of cities and things like that. So they've been working on a web page that has resources, links, as well as local initiatives that are taking place as well. So I may well share that in an upcoming email with the commission, just to see maybe how this relates quite closely, I would say, to some of the work that the commission is doing. I just thought it was timely, especially with this discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a small update there too. Some of you may not know that the city council members as well as city staff have been participating in Nehemiah's Black History course, Black History for a New Day. Something that the city has supported as part of our work with Nehemiah, and we just went through week 5 of 9, and I would just highly recommend it for anybody who might be interested. It's really eye-opening. This last week was Reconstruction to Jim Crow, and each one of the classes is about an hour-long lecture, and then there's a discussion after it. And it's even for those folks who are major history buffs and think they know the U.S. history, it's just a real eye-opener, and has been an eye-opener every day. And it's a relatively reasonable cost for such a class. And Nehemiah's got a whole bunch of sections running now, which means that we can attend without being in a quorum. So we're all in different classes. And I just would highly recommend it for anybody who's interested. I'd be happy to pass on information to people.
Yeah, well, I thought I read that they are going to start another session too.
Yes.
So yeah, I'd be interested in hearing that. I looked into this one, and it wasn't clear to me that we could actually sign up as non-alternate, so we can.
Yeah, I think you could sign up. I mean, they had people. I mean, we had in my discussion section, there's probably 10 people total, and 2 of them are from the city, but. Because I have the mayor and Doug Wood in my particular section, but everybody else is from other organizations or other parts of the city.
Because otherwise their regular class that they offer the public is on Monday nights, which is why
right, and we can't do it then. So that's why Nehemiah started offering it.
Yeah, if you could send that in.
Yeah, it's why they ramped up to start offering it more times during the week, because of course none of us could do Monday nights. Yeah, so anyway, great local resource, and I would highly recommend it. Nothing on sustainability that I can think of, except for I would say we're having our 2nd annual recycling event on the 20th. Elisa was afraid I was going to forget that. I just got the thumbs up. On the 23rd, which would be Earth Day, Earth Week, if you will, on the 23rd at Ahuska Park. Big recycling event. As last year, it will be a drive-through event. We had over 200 cars. People brought all their electronics, appliances, and there'll be lots of postings on the city's website and on our city's newsletter and postcards that have gone out that you'll see what's available to recycle and what you can recycle and what you can't at that event. But we've been told by the recycling service we also will be taking styrofoam that day, and we've been told by the recycling service that usually year 2 the amount doubles. And we had, I forget it was how many tons we had last year. It was over 200 cars, but I didn't know so many tube TVs still existed. But of course, they would be here in Monona if they did, right? Given our
If anybody has any of those, I'll take them. I'm actually working on an art project for one of the restaurants with them. Yeah,
that's great. So, in any case, great recycling event on the 23rd. Any other plan, commission, anything about upcoming meetings? We know we're going to have them. Sounds like we're still going to be busy.
Yes.
Any requests for information? Yes.
A couple. Doug, what's our notice requirement? I thought at one meeting you said 100 feet, and then this one I read was 200 feet. What's our policy?
It's 200 for a zoning permit.
So it's always 200.
Correct.
Because I know in Cottage Grove they're 400, and they're having a meeting to see if they should make it further. Because they have the same problem we do, is people always come back in and say, well, we weren't noticed, and that's a slippery slope. I don't know how far you go down it, but we're 200.
200. The only difference would be for the rezoning. There's a couple extra. You send one to the Madison clerk, for example. There's a couple just additional mailings, but 200 is pretty standard for us.
Thanks. And my other question was Chipotle. You hear anything about that?
I was just going to ask about that.
Just today, we got the Darren sent through the stamped approved stormwater and those pieces. I followed up on the CSM, which has still not yet been recorded, but we're just trying to. There are quite a few conditions, and there's some phasing, I would say, there as well that's important to that I want them, they have building plans that are ready to be reviewed for the shell of the Chipotle building, but certainly the stormwater needed to be addressed. But there's some discussion about things like circulation, fencing, all those with different check-in points. So I'm going to check with them as well as to when they would like to come back to the commission, because I think there's some benefit to coming sooner for some items than there is for others. As well.
My question was just, are they in a hold pattern? They're going to build, not going to build? And
they're still working behind the scenes, so I haven't any reason to believe they will be on hold.
I talked to them 2 weeks ago. They didn't say anything.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that too, because I noticed that the sign was still up and there was nothing going on at the building, and I thought, I haven't heard anything from them.
Well, it turned into an ice palace a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's right. I did hear about that. Yeah, like they had the pipes burst, right?
Yeah, and Jerry had called them to let them know, and then I talked to them, and at the time they said, no, we're still plugging along.
Okay. Yes.
As it relates to notice, and this might just be my own naiveness, like in other cities when you see like physical postings on the site with like the neon yellow signs, is there ever a consideration we might do that for certain projects?
That was when we spoke about the possible, sort of refinements to the process. That was the one that came to my mind. Certainly, City of Madison, I'm aware, have the yellow, stake signs for those. I think that would be a visual improvement that could be done if we got some simple signs and worked on a little insert for that. Certainly that, I think the spatial elements of that, the fact that you would walk by it or you would see it would be helpful. So I can certainly float that idea.
In addition to the website thing that you're already working on.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Good place for,
People always complain, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So everything we can do to let them have a chance at knowing would be good.
Right. And I think part of it goes back to what we're talking about previously too about property management, right? Because if we have buildings where there is a property manager on, where they do post it inside their building and they're responsible about that, then residents do find out about it, but then we've got other buildings that don't have a property manager on site or aren't as responsible about posting.
That's why you do it like Madison, you have it posted right out on the property by the main entrance. And
Right.
Doug or anyone can drive by and make sure it's posted. It has to be posted a number of days beforehand. Because that is a big problem, because our notice does go to the property owner. And they're
Right.
not under a legal obligation to tell every person that's in that building what's going on.
Right.
You'll still hear from some people if they didn't know about it, but I think that'd be good too, to have a sign, but I'm just saying, it
It's
won't solve everything.
a low labor way to address it.
Yeah, because the applicant has to do it.
Yep. I have to do it in Madison. I'm used to it.
If you've been there, you got to post it.
Yep. We could also, what about the airplanes with the banners behind them?
Get your pilot's license. Okay, anything else besides a motion to adjourn?
Rob's back.
Move adjournment.
No, I have a second. Who wants a second? Susan's a second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.